Greetings, everyone, and here we are ready to begin our study of macroeconomics. So macro is really great stuff. Macro is dealing with the entire economy as a whole, and so it's quite interesting. And this stuff, I have to say, now don't tell the micro folks, of which I'm also one of those, but I do think that the information you get in macro will be extremely, extremely useful to you. So this one deals with some very practical stuff. Micro, uh, you probably use that more if you go into the business community, start your own business, whatnot. But neither way, I have to tell you that it's all useful. And I don't mean I have to tell you because I'm required to tell you. I have to tell you because I truly believe that in my heart. So, and if you don't get anything useful at the end of this course, please don't tell me because I am too old to have my dreams shattered at this late date. My dream is that you will all go forth and talk about how much you're going to use this information that I have given you. So we'll just go with that right now. Meanwhile, we'll get started because I'm sure you have better things to do than to sit and listen to me forever, entertaining as I may be. Okay. All right, so we'll jump right into it. This is just going to be basic economics. I'm going to start with the basics for this session and take us up to talking about actually what is the economy. So one thing that works, and I may repeat this in later sessions just so that everyone will get it, because I think this helps when you understand this. Studying economics, studying the economy, it's like building a house. So right now we start and we lay the foundation. You can't put up the walls before you have the foundation, but the foundation, it's not going to be livable until you get it all stacked up. So we'll lay the foundation right now, and it's going to look like this big cement slab, and everybody's going to look at it and say, what the heck is that supposed to even be? I don't know. But as we progress onward, we add more stuff to it. We put up some walls, a roof, so on and so forth, and then you're like, okay, now I get it. Now I see it. We do a little landscaping, all that good stuff. So until we reach that point, and this is more true for micro than macro, because micro can be a little complex about things like that. But until we reach that point, you know, things just may seem like I'm pumped hot, but trust me, we'll get there. All right, and I'm going to make it as painless as possible. Okay, so we'll pull up the old handy dandy whiteboard. There we go. All righty. So I'm going to type notes on these, and you can copy them for yourself. We're going to type them in a lovely Georgia Highlands blue. Okay. So economics is the direct result of, so if you've ever wondered, this question is to answer, if you've ever wondered, why in the world do we have this? Where did it come from? It is the direct result of scarcity. Now, scarcity is not having enough resources to satisfy everyone's wants. So not having enough resources to satisfy everyone's wants. And like I said, macro, we're talking about the economy as a whole, the entire economy. Micro is focusing on the actions of individual agents within an economy. And I'm not going to make you write that down. But so if you were looking at, view it as, you know, as a doctor. Let's say you were a doctor and you were viewing this. So macro is when the patient comes in and you say, well, how are you feeling? And you may say, I feel good, I feel bad, a little tired, things like that. But you're talking about yourself as a whole. How do you feel? Micro, we're going to talk about micro. That's when the doctor would say, okay, well, you said you feel bad. What exactly feels bad? You may say, well, my head's been hurting. I've been having bad headaches. And then the doctor would focus on that. Well, are the headaches the result of, do you have a fever? Do you have, and you get little more specific. So that's the difference between macro and micro. And we're doing macros. This is macro, so we'll be doing the entire economy. Okay, so not having enough resources to satisfy everyone's wants. Now, we all have unlimited wants, don't we? I mean, the majority of us, even the folks that throughout history have said they're content, they're completely content, there's probably something they wanted. I mean, let's be honest, we are all human beings after all. So, resources, we don't have enough to satisfy everyone's wants. I think that's a given. So, let's talk. What do I mean, though, when I say resources? Well, when I'm talking about resources, I'm talking about anything used to make money. Because the majority of our wants can be attained with money, right? The majority of our wants can be. Now, I don't care that that sounds materialistic. If you're going to think every time you hear the word money, you're going to think, oh, we're consumerists and materialists and all that stuff, just get that out of your head, because economics is really the science of money. And all of these things are driven by money. So we're going to talk about it a lot. And resources are anything used to make money. And as people who exist, people who like to eat and have electricity and a roof over their head and something to drive and gas to put in the something they drive, you got to have money. So anything, kind of look for things that you can use to make money. Those are your resources. So there are four of them, four types of resources. And the first one is one that everybody has, and that is labor. You have yourself. You can go to work, right? You can work for others. And then I'll put or yourself, because you can be self-employed. And when you do that, you earn wages. All right, so you can work for others or yourself and earn wages. You can put your labor to work. Everybody has that one. Everybody can do something. All right, and then the second one is capital. Now, capital, you have some of that too. And you're actually here right now watching this delightful video lecture to increase your capital. So let's look. Capital, we're going to have two types of capital. All right, so the first type of capital, you know what, I'm going to write this a little, there we go. All right, so the first type of capital is physical capital. And physical capital, these are things like tools, oops, misspelled, tools and machines. So anything you have that you can use to make money. For example, let's say you own a lawnmower. You can use that lawnmower. That is physical capital. You can go out and use it to make money. You can combine your capital with your labor and go mow lawns and make money that way. If you have a computer, you can go online, and there's lots of things you can do to earn money online. You can sell stuff. You can do different things. So anyway, so that's something you can do. Now, the second type of capital we're going to talk about is human capital. Human capital, this is what's in the old noggin, in the old brain. So these are any knowledge or special skills you may have. So for example, you're here right now, you're getting a degree, you're increasing your knowledge base. Also could be said you're increasing your human capital. So that's something you're doing just by getting a degree. You're increasing your knowledge. If you read about how to do stuff, you're increasing your knowledge. Every morning I get up and I read the news so that I can, number one, so that I'll just increase my knowledge base so that I can share that with you and relate it to economics. So that's something that I do to increase my knowledge base, constantly reading and studying. Throw a nonfiction book in there every once in a while. Skills, things like maybe you know how to plumb or build cabinets or something like that. So, or landscaping, maybe you have a green thumb and you're really good at gardening. So all those things, or even time management is a skill. You could be good at that. So those are any knowledge or skills that you have that you can put to work making money for yourself. And for those, you earn let's see, where am I going to put this? All right, I'm going to draw a bracket here that's not very good. Huh? It's not very good, is it? But, oh well. I'm not an art teacher, I'm an economics teacher. So you earn interest with that. I'm kind of not liking that phrase about earning interest, because when we hear interest, we think of money, don't we? And we're talking about physical capital and human capital. But that's what it's called. So who are we to question the brilliant folks that coined that phrase? So anyway, we'll go on with the third one. I think where the interest came from, just to confuse you even further, is that there is a third type, but for some reason, your text at this level doesn't talk about it, but it's financial capital. So that's probably where, and that's just money you save and put to work for you. So that earns interest. But anyway, land is the third one. Now, this is probably what you might have thought of, might have came to mind when I said resources. You think of natural resources, and that's exactly what it is, natural resources. So you may own some land, you may own, your land may have a lake on it that you can get fish and sell the fish or things like that. So natural resources, you can rent out your land for people to do whatever you agree to let them do on there. So that is a way that you can use natural resources that you may own to make money. And on that, they earn rent. That one makes a little bit more sense. So you earn rent from that. Fourth one, and this is one of my, this might be my actual favorite. Entrepreneurship, because this one is the most fun to talk about. Entrepreneurship. Now, entrepreneurship, when you think of an entrepreneur, you're going to think about somebody like Bill Gates or Steve Jobs or the guys from Google. I think one of them's named Larry, but I can never remember their names. But you think about folks like that, or somebody who has just really done something remarkable, like Howard Schultz, the CEO of Starbucks. He revolutionized the way we think of a cup of coffee. A cup of coffee is no longer just a plain cup of coffee anymore. There's so much, it's so much more than that. So, you know, things like that. We might think of folks like that, or someone like Walt Disney, who created this mega empire based on entertainment, and look at how far it reaches. So we think of those as entrepreneurs. But there's quite a few more than that. But entrepreneurs, by its pure definition, and it's not just the idea people, because we think about it as someone who has this great idea. And you may think, okay, well, if I don't have any ideas or whatnot. But there's so much more to it than that. So not only do you have to have ideas, plus you have to be willing to take the risk. So an entrepreneur is not just someone with ideas. The world is full of people with great ideas, but also it has to be a person who takes the risk of putting their ideas out to market, of trying to market them and make some money off of them. Because an idea that just sticks, that just kind of percolates in your brain and doesn't get out there, that idea is not going to make you very much money, is it? It's not going to be worth very much in the marketplace. So you have to be willing to take a risk with that. And when you do, you earn profit. Okay, so you earn profit. And that is where your profit comes from. It's the ideas and the risk. All right. So I want to tell you, I'm going to stop this for just a second, because I want to tell you, see, I put on my glasses because I'm getting older by the second, and I couldn't see my stuff very well. Oh well. Anyway, so entrepreneurs. Okay, so you may be sitting there thinking, now I want to take a minute and explain to you that economics, a sandwich of economics here, comes with a side of life coaching. All of my classes come with a side of life coaching. And there's no extra charge for that. You know, that's just something you get for free. So for entrepreneurship, I want to tell you that you may be sitting there with these great ideas, and you don't have to be some mega millionaire with access to funds, with access to all that. I mean, anybody can be an entrepreneur. And in this day and age, with the resources you have, the internet, and all these different websites, and the glare is bothering me, so I'll take that off for right now. And all these different websites and everything, you can really be an entrepreneur. You can get your ideas to market so easily now. I'll give you a couple of examples. One example this one is my favorite one. So you've heard of these guys before, if you've had my class. And those are the geniuses behind, well, wait, before I tell you the name of it, let me ask you. Okay, so I love going to the movies, and I'm going to assume that you guys love going too. So how many of you have been to the movies? And okay, let's take Avengers Endgame. It was a very long movie, 3 hours long. Sometime during that movie, you're going to have to go pee. Everybody's going to have to go pee, especially if you got the big #1 combo that has that large, big gulp drink that you just, that you need to wash down all the salty popcorn. Which is heaven on earth, mind you. I don't know if that's actually butter that's put on it, but it's very greasy, and you still have to have it, regardless. So anyway, so if you're washing down all that salty popcorn, you're going to have to go pee at some point. But when to go? You don't want to miss a pivotal plot point. You don't want to miss something that you come back and everybody's going, oh man, you should have seen that. You don't want that. So these brilliant fellows came up with an idea for an app. And all it is they went to see the movies, them and their friends, and they would note when is a good time to go pee. At what point in the movie. They time it out for you, and on the app, you can actually just stick the app like next to your skin, and it will vibrate and go off if you set an alarm to tell you, okay, now's a good time to run pee. Isn't that amazing? I mean, it's so handy. And it also tells you, and this part is another part that I like, it also tells you when there is an end credit scene. So you know whether you stay around for the credits or not. But here is um, here is one of the coolest things that happened. So they did this. The guy started it, and his friends and family were going to see the movies and everything. And one of the fallbacks is that, of course, you could not. He'd have to wait until the movie came out, see it, so you couldn't go opening night and have access to this information. But this app has been bought by AMC, by that company. So not only did he make money on that, still running it, and now he gets pre-access so that all that stuff will be available when you go in. So that's pretty neat, huh? So that's an idea. He had this idea just from thinking, hey, wouldn't it be cool if there was an app to tell you when you could go to the bathroom and not miss any plot points in a movie, right? And young college guy that started this. So there you go. There's one idea that came from nothing. Another one that I'll tell you about, there were these folks. They lived in New Jersey, and they loved to go to the Jersey Shore on the weekends with their family, and they talked about how much trouble it is to schlep all the stuff out to the beach and then load it up at the end of the day and bring it back. So it was a young married couple, and the husband was asking the wife, said, well, would you pay somebody to do that for you? And she said, yes. And he said, okay, well, why won't people pay us then? So long story short, they started a business, and they designed an app where they would do that for you. They would come get your stuff, set it up on the beach in the location you wanted and all that, and then carry it back home for you after you're done. The first weekend that it was out there and people started to know about it, they made $1,000. So they're making roughly during the summer $1,000 extra on the weekend just for doing that. That's pretty darn cool. It was just an ordinary family that just happened to see a need and filled it. So don't think for 1 minute that your ideas are worthless or cannot be translated into something, or that you can't get it to market. It's so easy to do these days. Maybe not as easy as that, but it is easier than it used to be. And also, I mean, I could tell you stories, but I won't because I don't want to keep you too long on this, but I could tell you stories. I mean, I've heard about a 6-year-old that started his own business by the internet, different things like that. There was a 7 or 8-year-old, 9-year-old, somewhere along in there, that collaborated on a collection for J. Crew, a fashion collection for J. Crew. So stories are out there, folks. Gain them for inspiration. All right. we will get back to our good stuff, and I'll put my glasses back on. Okay, so to come up with a process for this, so for economists, when we want to make a decision, we use a process. Now, this is actually the material, but it's also good life coaching for you. We use a process called economic reasoning. And economic reasoning is so darn simple that you've been doing it. Now, I'm going to pause here for a moment and tell you, you're going to love this part of economics because you have been doing this stuff your entire life. You just didn't know that you were an economist your entire life. So you'll learn that this is going to be easy for you to remember. It'll translate into a good grade on your test. So economic reasoning is simply weighing your costs versus your benefits. That's all. So you start out and you could have your costs on one side. You could do on a sheet of paper, you have your costs on one side and then your benefits on the other, and that's economic reasoning. Right there. Let's draw us a line. There we go. So, and then my daughters, they always say when they're coming with a decision to me and I'm saying, well, have you done your economic reasoning? And then of course the eye roll there. But it's good. It works. It works. So definitely you should try this. But for economic reasoning, that's how you make decisions, weighing your cost versus your benefits. And that's a good way when you are in business to also weigh your cost versus your benefits. And we're going to be applying this reasoning to different things as the semester progresses as well. So one of those costs, so weighing costs versus benefits. Now, it's easy to figure out. If you're talking about your costs, it's easy to put a dollar figure on something. Like, for example, if you are choosing to skip work so that you can catch up on these video lectures, then you're missing out on money you would have made at work, perhaps, if you're paid by the hour or paid by the day if you took the day off or something like that. So, or a vacation day, you gave up a vacation day. But it's easy to put a number value on that cost, right? And it's easy to figure out, the benefit for that is that you make a good grade on your test. But there's another cost that many people forget to count, or at least they don't realize that they're counting it, or they count it in their minds when they're talking about their personal life, but they forget to count it when they're talking about making a business decision or something like that. And that is called your opportunity cost. And your opportunity cost, you may hear it referred to as opportunity cost of time, because you've got to count, what is my time worth? And, obviously, if you're paid by the hour, your time is worth that. Or at least that's what you're paid for your time. So that can be easy, but also thinking about there's a lot of quantifiable, there's a lot of qualified costs and benefits that weigh into this as well. So opportunity cost is what you give up to get something else. And if you're looking for a fancier, more book-like definition, you would say it is the value of the next best alternative. All right, so what you give up to get something else, which would be your next best alternative. So an example, I'll give you a couple of examples, a couple of different types. So let's say if you have a job making $10 per hour, okay, versus going to class, or in this case, watching the video lecture. So if you have a job making $10 an hour, and then this lecture, let's say it's an hour plus you have to set up the computer and then the travel time to work and all this stuff. So let's say you have to take off 2 hours to watch this video. So you're giving up, that your opportunity cost of watching the video lecture right now is $20 roughly. So you can make that decision. Now the cost of not watching the video lecture would be different. Perhaps you have to give up sleep because you have to stay up late at night and watch it so you can take your exam. Or perhaps it's that you you don't watch them, just wing it on the exam and you make a bad grade or something else along those lines. So it may be different to figure out, but that is opportunity. Those are both opportunity costs that can be weighed. Now the next one is to buy the latest iPhone, and let's say that's about $1,000. All right, so buy the latest iPhone, which is $1,000 versus future spending or other spending, you could call it. So buying that, you could spend $1,000. You've got $1,000. You could spend it on a new iPhone if you want the latest and greatest model, but what you're giving up, what is your opportunity cost? Well, it's any other spending you would do with that money. What else would you spend that money on? I am constantly debating spending on something myself, and then I always have to count in mind, well, what else, am I going to need in the future? Am I going to need that money for something else? So that is what you have to look at. Now you also have to look at, since I don't know that any of us here are independently wealthy, but if you are, I think you can still relate to this. We all have a budget constraint, don't we? And even if you're independently wealthy, you probably still operate under a budget constraint, which is that you have a finite amount of dollars to spend. So it means that you only have a certain amount to spend. So you have to budget for that. And then budgeting, there is a trade-off between the two. And it looks something like this. So your budget constraint, you just draw a regular graph. These are called the Cartesian graphs, just in case any of you want to throw around a fancy word and make your friends jealous. So a finite amount of dollars to spend is going to look like that, just a straight line right there on this graph. And this line is, that's your budget. So you can't spend past that line. Now let's say this isn't just your budget. Let's say this is your budget, your fun budget. So this is the budget you would use. This is the amount of money you can spend on fun stuff. And let's say when you want to have fun, let's do a different color to make it stand out more. You like to eat at restaurants or go to the movies, preferably both. Now you can do both. This does give you the opportunity to do both. All right, but let's say you like to eat at restaurants or go to the movies. Well, you can start, let's say that, let's say for example, that there's a lot of good movies out. Let's say it's summer and there's all these summer blockbusters out. So you start here and you might want to spend a little more on the movies. Might want to spend a little more on the movies right there. So see this graph, this starts at 0 and goes upwards. So it increases in value the more you go that way. All right, so you started there and you wanted to spend this much on movies. Well, that leaves you this much to spend on restaurants, all right, on eating out. So if you want to spend a lot on movies, then you spend a little less. So you're spending this much on movies, but you're only spending much. See, this line is shorter than this line. And you didn't go past your budget. So you're good. Now let's say that there's always a dry spell where if you like to go to the movies, you're going, what the heck, there's nothing out. There's nothing out. Nothing good out. I hate this. So you may want to eat out more. Or perhaps you just wanted to eat out more for some other reason. Maybe you had friends in town and you wanted to eat out. So you spent more money on restaurants and less on movies. So you can do any combination there, or you could hit it right in the middle if you wanted to. There you go. And you could do dinner and a movie. So you can do all that. You can spend it any way you want, but you cannot go past that line. And that is how the budget constraint works. Very simple stuff. Now, trust me, this is the beginning. Like I said, it's not all going to be that simple. Okay, so now there are other things that determine our spending decisions besides budget constraints. And these are the non-budget determinants of opportunity cost decisions. All right, so there are things other than budget that determines our decisions. We call those non-budget determinants, and here are what they are. Here they are. So first, we could, instead of necessarily always looking at our budget, we have time and space constraints, which means can only be in one place at a time. So for example, you can't be in the movies and eating. You know what, you can. We just went to the dine-in theater the other day. All right, never mind. But other than that, you can't be out to dinner at a restaurant and in the movie theater watching a movie at the same time. Ha, I did it. So you can't do that. So you have to consider making choices. You do have to make your choices sometimes. All right, your tastes and preferences. Now this one's going to show up a lot because everybody has different tastes and preferences, and we base those tastes and preferences on what we expect to happen. Like if you enjoy eating macaroni and cheese, then you sit down and you eat some macaroni and cheese and you expect to, I'm sorry, so I was thinking about that commercial that, anyway. But you sit down and you expect to enjoy that meal. So you're choosing that based on that expectation. So taste and preferences, this is what you prefer to do based on an expected outcome. So I'm going to be self-serving here for a moment. So if you watch these videos and take your notes and study, you're doing that. You prefer to do that based on the expected outcome of making a good grade on your exam. Yes, I know. And when you do something fun, you're doing it based on the expectation that you're going to have a good time. All right, alternative circumstance. Things change, don't they? Things change. Life does not stay the same. So, you know, things might change. You may have something come up where you may have a car repair bill, and that's going to change, you know, the fact that you were going to go on vacation this week or something like that, or something you were going to purchase for yourself. You know, you may decide to take a summer class, and that changed, you know, the decision that you were making to work full time. Maybe you want to do part time or something, or maybe you want to do both because you're a maniac there or something. But decisions change based on what's going on. So decisions change based on what's going on, and that changes as well. And the last one, this is one of my favorite, sunk costs. This is another one of my favorite. These are costs that have already been incurred and are unable to be recovered. So these costs have already been incurred. You've already done them, and they are unable to be recovered. You've already spent the money. So I'm going to share one with you, one of my favorites. Not one of my favorites. It's actually one of my least favorites, but it's something we all do. And so I'm going to ask you to raise your hand even though I can't see you, because this is what I do in my in-person classes, and it's fun. Okay, so how many of you have gone to see just a horrendous, terrible, bad movie, in your lifetime? And everybody's going to raise your hand, right? Okay. And if you haven't, Mazel Tov, and I'm sure you will in the future, because there's always a new bad movie around the pike. Okay. So do you get up and leave? How many of you get up and leave? Now, I'm betting that all those hands are down now, aren't they? We don't. We don't get up and leave. Why not? And this is the part where in person, the students would say, because we've already spent the money. That's right. Because you've already spent the money. And so you feel like if you leave, you're just throwing the money away. But if you sit and stay, not only are you throwing your money away, because the money's already spent, it's a sunk cost. That is the example of the sunk cost. That money is spent, you're not getting it back, and now you're throwing away your time in addition to your money. So you're not counting your opportunity cost of your time. You could go out and say, you know what, that's that. I hate it, bad movie. I'm going to go out and get some ice cream instead, or go out to eat, or just go home and read a book or something like that. So, I mean, if you check out a dull book from the library, you don't continue to read that book until it's over. You're like, this is awful, I'm not finishing it. So, because you haven't spent money on it, you checked it out from the library. So we sit there and we do that. We just cannot, there's something in our makeup that we just cannot stand to not get our money's worth. And that's good. That's good that we're like that. But at the same time, let's not let that make us ridiculous about it. Or as a good friend of mine says, don't be a darn fool about it. So we won't do that. But anyway, that's an example of a sunk cost. It's like when you go to see a bad movie and you just can't make yourself get up and leave, even though you'd rather be pistol whipped than sit through the rest of it. I know, we're crazy people, aren't we? Human nature is a funny, funny, funny thing. All right, so let's back to the old whiteboard. Okay. All right, so let's shift gears a moment. We've been talking like consumers, and we're going to shift gears a moment and put on our producer hats. We're going to think like producers, like businesses. And so we have scarcity, and scarcity means that there are limited resources. We covered that. They're limited resources. Well, it's not just limited resources for us. Think about what the resources were. There were things we used to make money. Well, those resources are also used for producers to. So limited, yeah. Producers need those too. I'm sorry, I had something come in. I had a text in my brain. So therefore, there's limited resources for us to make money, but there's also limited resources mean there's limited production. So producers have to deal with limited resources as well, just in a different way. So we can look at an illustration called the production possibilities curve. And if you hear it called the production possibilities frontier, it is the same thing. Okay, we're talking about the same thing. I just like to call it a curve, and you'll see why. All right, but the production possibilities curve, this illustrates opportunity cost for the producer. All right, so this illustrates opportunity cost for the producer. Now, it's going to look familiar when I draw it, but you'll see what I mean. Okay, so it looks like this is your basic graph, and it has a line like that. It's a little bit more curved, but it looks like your budget constraint, doesn't it? So this is what the producers have. So producers have this, and this is their version of that constraint. And this part of it is the resource line. So this is your limit. This is their limit. They cannot go past this line right here. This is their limit. All right. So this is the amount, this represents the amount of resources that the producer has. All right. So let's say, all right, so a producer can make, let's say this producer, our producer here is making 2 products. They have the ability to make 2 products. And since these products have the same ingredients, I'm going to say they can make bread or beer, but they cannot do both at the same time because they have a limited amount of resources, right? So they have to go in between. All right, so they can make, let's say it's summer, well, summertime. Let's say it's football season, and so a lot of people are drinking beer. Beer is, people are buying that more, so they would like to produce more beer hmm. All right, so they can do this much beer and this much bread. All right, that's pretty even, isn't it? Okay, so I didn't draw my curve, but anyway, but that's the point. They can draw this much beer and this much bread. So they can do that. They can produce at any combination on there. So we're going to draw these dots here. They can produce at any combination. Sorry, I don't draw straight lines very well on the computer, but they can do that. Or they can do, there we go, that's what I was looking at. So they can do, there's all different, they can do any different point on there. They just cannot go past it. All right. So with that in mind, what would you say about this point right here? And what you would say about it is that this point right here, they can't do it, can they? Because they can't achieve, they can't produce this much bread and this much beer because this point is beyond their resource line. This point right here is beyond their, they don't have enough resources to do it. So this point we say therefore is unattainable. So it's unattainable. They cannot produce that point right there. They don't have the resources at this time. Can they get them later? Yes. They can get resources later. They can hire more resources. They can expand their factory size, all kinds of things they can do, but they cannot do it right now. All right, what about if we were to say, what about this point right here? Well, looking at that one, you might say, okay, that one, they can do it. They're within those lines, but they have wasted resources, don't they? They can come on out here and produce, or this way, or this way. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff they can do to produce more. They're not living up to their potential. So this one is inefficient because they can produce more. Now you can see their opportunity cost because if you're going to produce, this shows us opportunity cost because say if you're going to produce right here, you're going to produce extra bread, then you're going to give up production of some beer there. All right, so that's where that comes from. Now let's say, all right, so let's say now we were talking about will it ever change? Well, yes, it can change. There can be, the economy can grow. The economy can grow. If it does, then that means there will be increased production capabilities. And what happens when there's increased production capabilities is, let's draw right here just a second. I had that curve. So remember we had the unattainable point out here. So if there's increased production possibilities, this curve will grow, it will shift to the right. So you've got that point out there. Well, let's make it green since the point was green, right? And it'll shift to the right. All right, so the curve shifts to the right. And let's draw us an arrow. So that we know. Okay, so there's an arrow. The curve shifts to the right. All right, so we have the second. Now, the opposite can happen too. The economy can recede. It can decline, have a recession. When that happens, there is decreased production capabilities, and the curve will do the opposite, won't it? So let's see what that looks like. Drawing it. And that one was purple. So see, it will, that inefficient one, all of a sudden, that's the best you can do. You've had to lay off workers, right? You have to lay off workers. Let's look and see. So you're starting here. Now let's say you can't afford to pay the workers. You don't have the money to do so. So you lay them off. That means less resources. Or you have to close a section of your factory, or you have some machines that require maintenance. They've broken down. You don't have the money to fix them. So it goes this way. Draw that arrow. All right, so see, so that means that the curve shifts left. Now, things like that can happen, a bankruptcy or a natural disaster, something along those lines. I will tell you this. Oh, never mind. I won't tell you anything because it just left my head. All right. If it's important, will come back to me. Okay. So, yeah, so the curve will shift left. Now, can it go back up to the right? Of course. Eventually it will. And we've never had a recession that has left us permanently crippled. The economy has always bounced back and came back stronger than ever. So, it's not necessarily something we will have to worry. It was important and it did come back to me. Okay. So anytime we're going to be doing a good bit of graphing here. And when we do, we're going to be doing a good bit of graphing in this class. And when we do, increases are going to shift the curves right, decreases are going to shift them left. So keep in mind, increases shift right, decreases shift left, and it's opposite, I guess, the way you're watching this. But anyway, just to right and left, remember that, and that will help you on the exam when you're trying to figure out